Guys, I guess we're live. I guess we're back, and George, we're gonna have to give everybody a second to get back in here because they cut us off. That was interesting. Anyway,
Thanks for tuning in.
let's go on. Let's see if we can get this going like this.
It was too much of a party. Everyone was having too good a time.
Exactly, they crashed it.
Oh, that's pretty good. How's that?
It was kind of a cool vibe you had going with all the music and everything. It's kind of like going to a party and everybo's starting to come into the party. You know?
Yeah, I was trying, George. I was trying.
That's the pretty cool
Help
thing.
me. How can I put this up? I need something like.
Music and everything. You know, when you first check everything out.
Let's see.
Still not reporting that.
Oh,
original.
Okay. Hello, targeted individuals.
People are still there, though. That's good.
Yeah, okay. We've got some people coming back in. Give them a second to find their way over. Sorry, I'm so ultra big. I keep feeling like remember the woman, the 50-foot woman that took let's get rid of that so we can get your full screen. That's a really nice thing you said about Dave, by the way. That was really nice. That was really nice.
I think that's very fair and it's accurate and we try to be fair and accurate.
It's not. It's the old ones.
Is it? Well, we're live right now, so we're just gonna. We have a new live thing going. Hi, everybody.
All right.
Yes, refresh. None of us heard it.
Back. There you go.
Who do you like best, George or? That's horrible. What do you like better? I mean, like pizza or chicken wings? I don't know. It's like, oh, come on. It's like you can't say that. It's like, I would hang out with both of you. When you were in Puerto Vallarta that one time, and Dave's like, George is in Puerto Vallarta. You were somewhere in Mexico, like hanging out for a while, like I'm like, I'm going. I don't know your brother that well, but I'm going down there. But I never did go. But like, yeah, I would have liked to go surf down there. That was like when you were traveling around.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I first met you. See, I knew Dave for a very long time, and I met George later because George was busy working for the man at the time, right?
Working for the man.
Big
working
time.
for IBM, HP, and
Big
Sun
time.
Microsystems.
Hey, for people coming in here, why don't you just, for a little entertainment purposes, tell them about what it was like being over at InfoWars, because I know you got the big call to InfoWars, which is kind of a badge of honor for a minute.
Yeah, I came in through InfoWars because we were a popular YouTube channel, Jason and I, and then Dr. Corsi approached us, and Jerome Corsi was running the Washington D.C. bureau, and now of course Corsi's involved in all this shenanigans with Roger Stone. But he took us to the Harvard Club in New York and said, hey, we're going to give you a 90-day contract. It felt like, Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. We're ready to give you a 90-day contract, George, to take over your channel and all your viewers. So anyway, that's what it seemed like. But we did kind of get into the bowels with, negotiating with Alex. And, I know you went into... you won a national contest. It seemed like Alex ran that contest for a year for a citizen journalist, and I think you were the finalist.
It was me.
Or you won, didn't you? Out of the whole country?
It was 5 of us. He gave a contract to 5 of us. Yeah. And but I had a restaurant in LA, so honestly, I wasn't sure I was the right fit for InfoWars, as much as I admired so much as they were doing. So I went down there, and it really, and I want to hear your opinion on this, but it wasn't for me. Like, too much dark news constantly, too much. I love the team. They're awesome. But yeah, I kind of felt depressed after being there for like a month, to be honest with you. And I was like, man, I'm going back to my little cafe in Malibu where I get to talk to the movie stars that wander in like, hey, Tom Hanks, how's your eggs? You know what I mean? Instead of like, Alex is like, quick, go go to Texas U, there's a bomb there. And I remember I'm like, okay, and I've got a cameraman and we're running over to the bomb at Texas U, and my son called. He's like, Mom, what are you doing? I'm like, there's a bomb at Texas U, I'm going over. He's like, no, stop right now, turn around, go away from the bomb. Mom, what are you doing? And it's like, it was kind of one of those moments where, oh, wait, maybe I should be surfing back in LA and just doing my channel. And like the higher frequency thing is like, I don't know. Like, is there a way to do higher frequency news? I don't know. You're so funny, George. You should be funnier when you do your stuff.
Yeah. Well, I remember.
Except for all the
watching
death
this
and gore and like
this-
horrible things.
Before I ever had any thoughts about doing journalism or whatever. And I was following you along, and Alex was going through these hundreds of people, and they were showing all the profiles, and then they were saying, oh, there's Linda West, she's the Malibu girl. And, that smoky voice, Alex had kind of a crush on you a little bit. And I followed you, and Dave was telling me when you were going down there, and you were just the real person. I hate to say it like that, but you were kind of the person who already had a life, already had a business, already kind of were launched. And everybody else seemed like they were, 20-somethings coming out of journalism school, which was fine. But I enjoyed your time there at InfoWars. And, I think it is a grinder, though. You can't, Alex, like any news business, it's a 24-hour cycle. Like you say, you're always running to some kind of explosion or bombing or shooting somebody just said something that another person on Capitol Hill stabbed him in the back. It's not one of those, hey, let's go to the beach, roll the fatty and look at the waves.
Right,
it's
California's
not that kind of business. And you know what, if I could be at Malibu, I would be probably doing the same thing.
Well, the thing is, you could be in Malibu,
probably
George.
said too much there. Sorry.
Let's be real. You could be in Malibu. It's all about choices. But hey, let me see. I'm gonna check the chat. Does anyone have a question for George? Let me see. Gaslighting, getting offensive. Are we going to be able to ask? Yeah, ask something, Jassy Joe. What do you want to know? Can you ask George to discuss his time in the Czech Republic? Were you in the Czech Republic?
Well,
What about
married a gal whose father was really into the Czech traditions. So we would have like a garlic festival every year where we would all go out and plant garlic, and then we would have a garlic harvest festival where and we would celebrate Czech songs and Czech everything, right? And so it was he would bring in people we had a Czech club where they brought folks in. This is before communism fell, to bring into the United States. And I didn't realize that the Czech embassy was actually kind of a conduit for Russians. If they wanted to put Russians into the United States, they would give them a Czech passport. So we brought a lot of people into the United States. We brought a lot of people into Canada. And then when communism was about ready to fall, I went over there in '89, after the Velvet Revolution. Actually, I was there before the Velvet Revolution as well. We actually stayed with the chief of staff for Pavel, who was the new prime minister of Czechoslovakia, or the new president, I can't remember which. And we got into these discussions with these two lawyers that I went over with, my father-in-law and his best friend, who was also a lawyer, and he was kind of his bomber pilot buddy from World War II. And we got into all these discussions about, hey, Americans investing in this ex-satellite of the Soviet Union. And we started out talking about automobile factories.
Right.
And like about 10 minutes into the discussion, it went to, well, how about weapons? How do you feel about, investing in weapons?
Gee, I was just going to ask you how you like the food.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes in. It was like, well, we talked about the Skoda, cars, for the obligatory 10 minutes. Now let's talk about weapons. How can we get your investment in weapons? And, people trying to sell me very large ships for $80,000. And it was crazy.
Why?
Time.
Just because
And
you're
anyway,
an American? I mean, why were they targeting you? Just
I think just as a stupid American who would buy a ship and then find out the next day that they didn't actually buy anything, and they would sell that ship 20 or 30 times to Americans. I found out later that there was this crime boss from the Soviet Union who had moved there. His name is Samoyan Mogilevich, and he had made Prague his crime capital. This is even before the fall of the Soviet Union, and then he had moved. They kicked him out of Prague, and then they moved him down to Budapest. I also went with these two lawyers to Budapest, and I was supposed to go to the meeting, but I didn't get to go. But they went to this truck manufacturer, and the same thing. About 10 minutes in, hey, okay, we talked about the trucks, and now let's talk about weapons.
That's
You
crazy.
can put very large missile systems on these trucks. So, and anyway, the third set of discussions, which were supposed to happen, were Sofia, Bulgaria, which is also a very famous area for making weapons. Czechoslovakia is famous for that. Hungary was famous for that, but I didn't go on that, and neither did the other guys. But in our story that I cover right now, it turns out that all these Kalashnikovs that are being brought into the United States and then being ferreted all over the world for covert weapons actions by Oleg Deripaska are actually made at that third factory that I never did get to go to. So that's the story of Prague, and that's the story of Prague.
Well,
I went
dude, who
inside the
asked that
American
long
Embassy.
question about Czech Republic? I was just, I would have been happy to know about the garlic festival.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
wait a minute. I'm going to call
we had-
Dave in and bring him in here for a second. And here he is. Let's, well, here you go. George and Dave. Let's hope you guys, I've got a microphone between the two.
Linda, let me just tell you a little story, because I know everybody likes my little stories, right?
Oh, here you go.
So I'm going to tell you guys something. George, you listen up too, because you could use this information.
Oh, God.
Whenever you
Wait,
get around cops,
Big brother talking.
whenever you get around cops, Linda, this could save your life someday. It's
Okay,
not
I'm listening. I'm so
information. This is
sorry. I'm so
million-dollar
sorry.
information, Linda.
I'm sorry.
So whenever you get around cops, firefighters, they always have a story. Every single one's got their story. And that's when you get the bonding. That's when you get the male bonding. It's like, oh, they're going to do their 10-second story where they face life and death, all that crap, right?
Right?
So that's the lost art of storytelling. So where you see storytelling is in public safety. Everybody learns from each other by storytelling. So I'm at this one conference, and I'm talking to somebody, and this lady's next to me, and I guess she's 12 years digital forensics, digital electronic evidence, sheriff's department. And I go, well, blah, 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 electronic evidence, blah, 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 electronic evidence, blah, 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 child pornography. And she goes, there's some things you don't talk about in polite company. And I thought, hey, there you go. So we can put all the child pornography in the evidence locker. We'll leave that in the evidence locker, and we'll just talk about things in polite company. So you get a little bit of a story, you get a little bit of a gutsy story, and then there's a lesson learned. So George and I will just talk about what people talk about in polite company. It's just that simple.
So what'd you have for dinner tonight, Dave?
Polite company. George, what did you have for dinner?
I had wheat thins, veggie wheat thins.
Yeah, George, it's customary to go, wow, that was a great story, Dave. So
No,
let's
you just asked him what he had for dinner. Okay, that said,
You were accusing me of child trafficking or not? So I was a little bit set aback. But I had a chicken salad at a local
Hey, George,
restaurant.
okay. Take it easy. All right, we got it.
that said, if George is on wheat thins and anybody wants to super chat, I'm splitting it with the brothers.
The dirty laundry's coming out.
No dirty laundry. Let's talk about something more interesting. Let's talk about.
Everybody loves the Big Bruiser incident. Everybody loves the Big Bruiser incident. That's
Big
when
bruiser. I knew the big bruisers were coming out.
Oh, no. Don't, no. It's this way. Hold on, Dave. Hold on. Well, are we talking about the big bruiser thing?
We're both victims in this. We're both in the
Are,
together. I'm recreating.
are we talking about this, George? Yes.
Well, I don't know if Dave's still speaking, but
Hold on a second, Dave. I just want to make sure the big bruiser event's fine to, like, with George also. Is that okay, George?
Well, here's the story.
Oh.
There was a toy that was made by a company in Ohio where we grew up in Cleveland.
Wait,
And
let's
they
just
had
stop.
the
Is this
kind of
going to
belly
amuse
whistle
anyone else
tow
but you and
truck
Dave?
toy. And it was called a Big Bruiser.
Okay.
I'll hang up and George can talk some more. So there's this kid, and his teacher said, you got to write a report on the Morse code. And the kid goes, okay. So the kid goes home and he goes up to his dad. He goes, Daddy, I got to write a report on the Morse code. Can you help me? And the father goes, he's tired. He's sitting in the easy chair, goes, son, can't you go talk to your mother about this? And the kid says, I don't want to know that much about it.
He's saying I'm
So George,
the one who is the low
I don't want to know that
information.
much about it. So if you kind of walk up to somebody and go, hey, what's the story with Corsi? I mean, like, Corsi just sued Roger Stone. I mean, it's crazy. Everybody's suing everybody. So Corsi's like to Roger Stone, I'm going to sue you for $25 million. And they're like, whoa, you guys used to be best friends and you guys used to be pals. And George knows these people.
Do you know them, George?
Yeah, I do. Well, Dave makes a good point that a lot of these people are attention-seeking folks, and Jerome Corsi, when I first met him, I took him at face value as a very good person. He seemed very knowledgeable and so forth. He made us an offer at InfoWars and all that at the Harvard Club in New York City. But then all of a sudden, like Dave says, we're in this middle of this broadcast, and I'm on the road as a reporter, intrepidly talking to all these informants, and I talked to this guy, Deep Uranium, who's telling me about all this illegal uranium trade, and he supposedly has this group of 6 informants, and I'm intrepidly trying to get to the the centrifuge factory that Robert Mueller shut down, and all of a sudden Jerome Corsi injects himself into the broadcast and starts talking about Charleston and a story I'd done 30 days before, which was this illegal weapons trade and illegal ammo trade that the Awan brothers were doing with Nancy Pelosi through the port of Charleston. But it had nothing to do with what I was doing on this road trip. So Dave is right. I mean, Jerome Corsi will inject himself into situations just to get the limelight, and he doesn't really care if he puts you in jail. And to this day, I'm the only American who's ever gone to jail for Uranium One. So I agree with Dave. I mean, Jerome Corsi is not a person to be trusted. I think he stabbed Roger Stone in the back. I interviewed Roger Stone about 4 weeks ago, and Roger Stone said the same exact thing. So that's my, I guess, end statement on Jerome Corsi. He's just not a person to be trusted.
Okay.
Got to hold the phone
Okay.
to the internet microphone.
I'll sound better.
Well, we don't want to talk about Jerome Corsi anymore because he'll sue us. And so that's a given. I mean, so that's what truth seeking is all about. If you say something to somebody, oh, I'm going to sue you $25 million. And then like, hey, you took my parking spot. I'm going to sue you $10 million. Hey, wasn't that my chair? Wasn't that my chair? Hey, that's $10 million right there. Okay, so there you go. You're getting a little bit of a feel for this grandstanding. Now, George is an interesting character, and I'm not putting him in the grandstanding category. But let's face it, George, you're not a novice when it comes to the federal courtroom.
I guess that's true now. I didn't want to be, but I have my baptism of fire, and I have 2 lawsuits. And I learned from my big brother Dave that sometimes there's nobody else to turn to, and if you don't rely on your own, moxie, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to do a pro se, which is suing, just as an individual with no representation, and. So far, so good. I'm in appeals court with the DNC, and I'm in, district court with the FBI.
So say what you want. I mean, Linda, it's like 2 pilots in World War I. I use these illustrations for George's benefit. He relates. He's kind of like a cat chasing the keys around and the laser pointer. I'm doing George a favor by using this story. Trust me. So we're like World War I pilots. And George, I'll even be the German ace. I'll be the German ace. And George is in the soft with Camel. And these are these, hold on. These are these single prop biplanes, 1914 Snoopy, You remember all that, Linda, from the Charlie Brown Christmas special? Snoopy's in his
Oh my
airplane.
God, I don't
Right.
know, like, brothers are brutal, that's all I can
Right.
say.
So,
I like you
having
guys.
said that, there's a chivalry, and I'll use some other examples, and I'll be quiet, pass it back to George. But you look up in the air, you're a farmer. You're a farmer with your own channel that interviews people in the British Columbia area, and you're like, look, it's a German biplane and it's a British biplane. They're going to shoot each other down. And then you see some smoke coming out of the British plane, and the German ace goes, I'm not going to splash this guy today. I feel like him. You and me, help me. You feel like he's up in the air, he's facing death at 10,000 feet and 0 degrees, just like me. It's like the knights. There's a chivalry. It's like, there's this respect. So basically, when you get into the federal court, now George can look at me and go, I know what you went through, Dave. I got a picture of it now. I see it. And so I'm the pilot, maybe in this story, just for illustrative purposes only. Disclaimer. I'm waving George off. I'm waving him off. He may kill me another day. I may kill him another day. But we're waving. We're saluting each other. George is giving me the salute. I'm giving him the salute. We're going to peel off. He's going to go back to England in his crappy, lousy plane that's pouring out smoke. That's only
Why
up to
does
about...
George get a crappy plane?
No, he's not going to crash. He's not going to crash. He's going to ditch over the English Channel, and there's going to be some tugboat to pick him up. He's going to go to a
With
bar.
hot chicks on
into
it.
town.
Hot chicks on the tugboat. Don't forget. Somehow you seem to manifest the chick
So
power.
George is under control, and then I'm going to go back. Hey, I got the bad deal here. I got to go back to this authoritarian airstrip, listening to some colonel screaming at me. George has got the better deal. A little bit of smoke, so what?
Okay.
So George and I have that camaraderie. We have that legal camaraderie. But to the unwashed masses, people that live in New York City and have channels, they're working together. Look, you see the two planes? They saluted each other. They're working together. No, it's just a camaraderie. That's all I got to say about that.
All right.
Well, he's right. We're not working together. And I do. Dave is the ace.
I'm with you, Yori.
I am the Snoopy in this story, with the two,
You're
or
the
2 or 3
Snoopy
Southwood
in this
Camel planes,
story.
and he is the Blue Max, and he's gone up against the Army, the Navy. Oh my God, I can't count all the folks he's gone up against. And to Dave's credit, he's never done legal help, because you can't say that, but he has helped people who are stepped on in the legal situation.
He helped
and he has
me.
helped them.
Dave's
take
helped me.
action a lot, and people don't know this. 10 or 12 different people to make sure that their rights were enforced, and so that's a part that people don't see about Dave. But he's been through this rodeo like 50 times. I'm too into it. So he is certainly the World War I flying ace, and I am Snoopy crawling through the grass in the French countryside trying to get to my Southwood Camel with all the bullet holes. That's a good analogy, actually. But I am very happy that Dave salutes me and doesn't shoot me down. He's happy enough to say, okay, I got the best of you. I put 20 bullet holes in your doghouse, but you best go back to your Southwood Camel base and not try to take me on. And I never said that. I would, Dave's expertise in law is truly amazing. I have lawyers who've been practicing litigators 30 years who say, oh, by the way, look at this. This is what Dave said. And he quotes certain law and precedents and cases and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, how the hell did he know that? It's through practice. It's through going up against the biggest law firms in the world. And like I say, I'm very much a novice in this. And it just so happens I went up against Perkins Coie. With the DNC, my first one.
You got to cut your teeth somewhere, George. You got to cut your teeth somewhere. You got to get it mixed up.
It's the DNC's law firm. So.
Yeah, we're proud of you, George. You really came through. We're going to give you like a legal Purple Heart. At the time, it was what the people needed. The people needed to be inspired by a folksy hero, and there was George with his sword, crusading on the courthouse steps, rising up and saying, no, I gave my $30 to Bernie. And now when you flash it all back, there was a lot of controversy. There was a lot of upset Bernie people. There was a lot of conspiracy stuff. The head of the Democratic National Committee just came out, whatever her name is. I was part of the conspiracy. So it was in the air. The air was so thick with this Democratic conspiracy DNC stuff. I know George couldn't even walk across the street, but there he was crusading on the courthouse steps saying, I will not let this stand. I'm going to make a big deal about this. And there you go. So a lot of people would have never done that. So George did it.
You did, George?
I did. Yeah, so I don't want this to be, there's supposed to be a lot of fighting and tussling and eye poking and eye gouging and so forth. And it's turning into a mutual admiration session. So
Okay, let me take some questions from the chat, and maybe you can fight with some of the people in there. So, okay, all right. So, anybody, somebody had a question about, something about, what was it? A nuclear? George did it. Okay. Well, guys, anybody have a question for them? LOL, a lot of smiling. Sorry.
Prepper Kitty is fine. I know a lot of people are worried about Prepper Kitty.
Okay.
Threats have been made by Prepper Kitty. They're from the people in New York. That's how low they are. That's how low they go.
They want to know about you suing the CIA. And before they do, I just have to say one thing before I go check my chicken. And I think this was right when I met you, George. I went through a horrible thing on YouTube back when, and literally it was Monsanto-backed puppets attacking me and Dave at the time, but like horrible things where I was getting death threats with me and my young son, horrible things. And it's like, Dave represented me. I didn't have the money for a lawyer at the time. I mean, who ever has the money for a lawyer, really? But it's like, this all stopped because Dave is like better than any lawyer I've ever met. And I keep telling him he should become a lawyer, but then it's like, I guess he doesn't need to because he knows the law. But thank you, Dave. I'm going to say publicly before you answer this question.
I appreciate it, Linda. And don't forget, hiring a lawyer proves that you're not to represent yourself. So I always saw someone who hires a lawyer like, why would you tell the judge that you're that dumb?
Wait, hold on. That's most of us, Dave. That's most of us. Just here, before you start a ride here. Okay.
Well, I got to tell you, folks, and I'll throw it over to George. It all starts with that first parking ticket. And I got George out of a massive
They want to know about the CIA, how you whistle blew and won against the CIA.
So if you go to the exact same district court where Robert David Steele is suing the Earth dwellers wherever they're at, that exact same district, talk about future, what are they called? Life imitating art. In 1995, I sued the CIA in that exact same court. So if you go in and type my name in, two cases are going to come up. The 1995 CIA case and the case that I'm an interested party in now, which is dealing with Robert David Steele. In this particular setting, we're not even two airplanes flying next to each other and having peasants on the ground shaking their rakes going, they're working together. They're working together. In this case, I'm flying an airplane and the other person is on a submarine in the North Atlantic. Oh, they're working together. I don't even know who Robert David Steele is.
Is this a new movie or something?
Well, I get a lot of movie deals, Linda. I discard them. That's not
You both be great.
Me.
You'd be great. Okay, I'm checking my ticket for all you people I know that are so interested in the dinner part of this conversation.
I'm getting into the CIA part. I know.
Keep going, Dave.
So I'm not working together with Robert David Steele, who's an ex-CIA operative. So you go, oh, they're tied in. Look. So there was a case where, I'll be brief, where there was a person that basically went to the CIA and said, hey, here's the cocktail napkin. You owe me $1 million. And the CIA said, okay, sorry. And they gave him $1 million. I worked for that guy. And that guy did a lot of crazy, wild crap. And I kept telling him, hey, you can't do this with government money. You can't do this with the military money. You can't do this. Oh, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay. So one day, I don't know, I think he said I drank my coffee like a cat. When I slurped my coffee, he said it sounded like a cat using the litter box. I was like, okay. And I said this in front of everybody. And I was like, you're a real jerk. So anyway, I thought, might as well throw him in jail. So that's what I did. So he made fun of me for slurping. It all goes back to the coffee cups, Linda. It all goes back to the coffee cups. And so throughout that ordeal, the CIA basically was like, well, you never did anything. You never, because I had a 30% finder's fee coming to me. I had about $275,000. So there was a financial benefit to this. And so people at the CIA and the FBI, which, by the way, all these FBI people get so scared of the gold badges. I had 2 interrogation interviews with the FBI over this, about 3 interrogation interviews with the Department of Navy, and then 2 other interrogation interviews. So I got to be real good at interrogation interviews, because when they first meet you, they blame you. You must have been the one. You were behind it. No, here's the paperwork. Boo, 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 boo. Oh, I guess it's the other guy. Anyway, long story short, I wanted to get documents from our beloved CIA, and I said, hey, you guys got to turn this stuff over. And they said, no, we don't. No, we don't have to turn anything over. I said, listen, pal, you better turn this over. I'm going to take this down to federal court. Now go ahead. See what we do. We don't care about you. So anyway, I went down, filed a lawsuit, and the judge said, give this kid all his crap. That's the story.
Yeah, and I remember the company. Is that the company you're working for in Cherry Hill or?
Well, we don't have to get into specifics, but that's basically the story. I know I went on and on, but that's basically it.
No, that was a good story, because I remember just the intensity of it all, and the CIA and just everybody wanted you to be the fall guy for bringing it forward, and I remember you having to defend yourself against all these FBI guys, hotboxing you in these interviews.
Yeah, the FBI wasn't, listen, Linda,
the
FBI wasn't crazy about me doing this.
You were by yourself. You had no representation.
Right.
And that was like 92, 93, if I remember correctly. And, you punched your way out of it, and, I look at that and say, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not that smart. I don't have that, amount of knowledge about the law. But if there ever was a situation that reflects the same thing that's going on today, there's 190 whistleblowers that came forward during the 2016 election. And they've all been buried by the Office of Inspector General in the intelligence community. And there's only one person they put forward, which is a fake whistleblower. Her name's Reality Winner, and it's just fake. And all the other ones have, all the other folks have been, the same thing that happened to Dave, where they try to blame you for for blowing the whistle. But Dave punched his way out of it somehow. But that's not true for most of the whistleblowers in Washington, D.C. They get crushed. They have to go hire a lawyer. Robin Gritz is the FBI agent that I've interviewed and worked with. She spent $250,000 in legal fees, and now she's on her back. She doesn't have a very good job. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? It's very sad that the deep state is real, and it will come at you.
Well, I think the one thing, and Linda always preaches this, is that people got to stop depending on the government. People got to stop saying, oh, the government's going to get us out of this. Oh, the government's going to take care of this disaster. Oh, the government's going to... And people have to stop thinking that the government's going to swoop in and do something, because they're not. They're not going to do anything. And people say, well, why doesn't someone do something? And that's what everybody's pushing on the edge of the conspiracy talk movement is one day everyone's going to get fed up. One day the militia or whoever, insert your favorite boogeyman, one day they're going to get fed up and they're going to rise up. They're going to rise up. And so some people are using the Roger Stone SWAT of the subpoena and the arrest order and the search warrant, all that crap. everybody's using that as to try to rile people up. And then they bring the Bundys out. Hey, let's rile everybody up. Let's rile everybody up. And then while they're riling everybody up and getting people to do impulsive things, they keep saying, look how unfair this is. Look how unfair this is. And that's where I learned from Linda is you got to keep a positive attitude, do what you can, and realize that looking to government for your answer, it's just a big waste of time. They're just not gonna respond. So get over thinking the government's your sugar daddy and Santa Claus. That's all.
Okay, I've got a question from, DVC 777 wants to know, what do you guys think of the State of the Union address?
What's that?
I don't want to go any further unless I know that your chicken is okay.
I just checked the chicken, and I'm so sad you're all not here to actually share in this chicken because it's looking really awesome.
Oh, that
So
sounds good.
go forward. Well, why don't we start with you, George? What are your thoughts on the State of the Union address?
Well, I won't say much. I just thought Trump struck a conciliatory tone. And, we saw today in the hearings with Whitaker, the Democrats are having none of it. They're going to come out firing. Now they have subpoena power. So that's really it. I mean, it was kind of like an olive branch that got put into one of those shredders, that you see these guys come out with, when a tree branch falls. It's like, no, the olive branch is going to be.
Well, is that his name, Scott Whitaker? Is that the guy's name, the acting attorney general?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's the guy down at World Patent Marketing. Since patent, spoliation is now the most popular term on YouTube, by the way. So everybody's saying spoliation. So now everyone's saying patents. And this Whitaker guy worked at World Patent Marketing, which was a total ripoff. And the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, shut them down because they sponsored these little fake newscasts. And when they would say, oh, we got the best vitamins in the world. And then they would cut away. And they hired actors, they had a set. It's kind of like an InfoWars thing, Linda, where they had a set, and they hired somebody like you, and they'd like, wow, she looks like a news reporter. And then you would say, you know what, people are living at 200. And so Whitaker.
I did, I looked really good.
Right. Oh, yeah, it was just like that. So Whitaker represented them, and Whitaker would threaten people with prosecution and arrest and everything. So Whitaker stands for making money with fake news, ripping people off. That's the acting attorney general. So I'm glad he's acting. That's great. But the World Patent Marketing thing is kind of hanging over his head a little bit. So I just thought I'd throw that out. Most people don't know about that. It was a big deal when it first came out. Hey, I could do my Donald Trump on the next go-around. Back to you, Linda.
All right, I have another question. Somebody, I don't know if you want to address this or not. They want to know why you left the whatever crowdsource situation.
Well,
Wait, can I just preface this without giving too much credit to somebody we don't want to give credit to? It's like spending too much time on it, like.
Well, so for whatever reason, I went on the road, and I had been doing kind of a YouTube channel for about 6 months, where I was engaging an audience in open source journalism. And I had a phone call that kind of changed the game with Cy Hirsch, and he said, you need to go on the road. You need to write a book. And so I did. And I went on the road and went to all these places that I had been, collecting information on. And it ended up with me knocking on the door of a Marine who said that the person who rented him the house had been storing government equipment, government hard drives, government BlackBerries, and it seemed like there was a server with these hard drives that was somehow doing some kind of nefarious activity to Pakistan. So, I mean, that's kind of my story of accidental journalism, finding this treasure trove of evidence with trade potentially to Pakistan. Now, we don't know what they were doing with it. We don't have any proof of that yet. I have a lot of ideas, but that's basically kind of how I fell into all this. Is I was doing armchair quarterbacking, where I was collecting evidence and reading books and taking a lot of information in over the internet. And then somebody finally challenged me and said, you need to go on the road and actually go do reporting. And that's what I did. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
No, that's,
Well, Linda, allow me.
please.
Let's put it this way. When you were unceremoniously excused off the set, how long did it take you to get your belongings back? Wasn't that a week? Weren't you locked out for a week in New York?
Well, so I had a very big following because of this, transition. I had about 40,000 followers, and then Jason invited me into his home. He didn't have money to put me up into a hotel, so I ended up sleeping on his couch. We worked night and day for about 3 or 4 months.
Hey, George, can we say the
on
J-Man? Can we just say the J-Man? The J-Man?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Nice.
I'm just telling the truth. And
I know, but let's not use real names, though.
okay.
All right. J-Man.
And,
The J-Man.
we worked at it pretty hard, but I think, he had other, offers, basically, and I was just one person. There was much bigger stars out there that were talking to him, like Charles Ortel and other folks I just love Charles Ortel, and Dr. Corsi was talking to him. And, I came back from coffee one morning and I was locked out of the house and I just wanted my stuff, It was about a week until
Wait, can I just stop you 1 second? Okay, so, because I live in LA, okay? I've had so many people on my floor. I've had to live on floors. It happens, like, good people let you in, blah, blah, blah. But you're telling me here's this person that opened his door to you, and I know New York City. I model in New York City. It's impossible to find a place to stay in New York City. It's so expensive. It's so hard. So he opened his door to you. You're living on his floor, and then one day you're telling me you came home and he locked the door and wouldn't give you your stuff?
It was about 9:30 in the morning, and I was on his couch, and we were working day and night on news. I mean, we were working day and night, along with Trish Negron, who was a citizen journalist out of Boston. So, I mean, this is old news, but
But why? What was his reasoning for, like, being a jerk?
I think he had other offers. He had bigger offers.
Well, I don't care if he had other
Ortel.
offers, but what's his reasoning for, like, not being a decent human being and giving you back your personal items if he doesn't want you in his house anymore? Like, what? I mean,
I think it was just punitive. I mean, I think he had a deal with Charles Ortel. They were talking with Jerome Corsi. They were talking about $9,000 a month.
Unsatisfactory. All right, well, now we know. We know. Thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate it.
Actually,
Well, we can let that go.
Move this on, George.
Let's
You
just-
gotta move it along.
That's
That story's not going anywhere.
we
That
call
story's
this a-
deader than disco.
Yeah,
The
let's
story's
just
deader
let
than
this
disco.
go.
Let's move on.
This is an opportunist who didn't treat you right, and you know what? His loss. What I always find is the cream, like all high frequencies, they rise to the top. You're a good person, George. You're trying to do what you think is good for the world. Maybe people agree with you, maybe they don't. Same thing with Dave. I know him too. Trying to do his best. Maybe it doesn't rub everyone the right way. Nobody does, but like. That's not a right way he treated you, so let's move on, because who cares about him? I'll tell you what, that guy is a blip in the scene of nowhere. Nobody cares. So just let's move on to somebody else's new question. Let me take a question from the chat. Okay, okay. You're right, Ian. Anybody have a question for the guys?
See, let me tell a story how you get over a lot of this friction. And that'll be
Who
like 10
cares
seconds.
about like drinking? Dude.
Quick story to get over friction. Okay. So when I got my first big important job, I was working in the airline industry and I was controlling 200 ground stations and VHF communications. And your close friend, who's a pilot, will know all about the kind of stuff I did because we were optimizing aircraft travel. So it was an important job. And one day I came home for Thanksgiving and my mom says, "Well, what are you doing now, Dave?" I said, "Well, Mom, I'm controlling 200 VHF ground stations and this and that and the other thing, blah, blah, blah." So one of her friends came over and says, "What's Dave doing?" She goes, "Oh, he works for the Weather Bureau." And see, we all need those he works for the Weather Bureau. We all need those little containers to get a handle on all of these little things floating around. Because when George says, my brother worked for NATO generals passing money laundering, what he's really saying is, my brother works for the Weather Bureau. He doesn't really understand what's going on. He's taking a guess at it. His mind's not set up that way to really understand all the intricacies. So a lot of times to get over our differences, we just have to remember that some people are going to go, he works for the Weather Bureau. And that's it. So that's what we call he works for the Weather Bureau incident.
Thanks for the super chat. I'm sorry, they're supposed to have your name up there. Oh, God. That was.
Is that right, George? I mean, George, why stick with Jimmy Stewart and crying movies?
Move
You got
Dave's
me
audio is
right here.
muffled?
Like,
Okay.
hey, I get an original
better?
one-man show from my brother. It's great. You know what I mean?
Sweet.
All right, what's the next question?
All right, okay. Oh, who else has got another question? Come on, let's go. What do we got for the boys? How was it growing up? Okay, now I know I'm not allowed to say this, but so I'm going to keep it on the down low. But I happen to know that their father was a certified genius inventor and invented something that we all use today that we can't talk about. But it's no surprise that these two brothers are brilliant. I'm just glad they're on our side. And yeah, so let's take another question.
Don't forget that cordless phone, that patent, that was directly tied into the John Benet Ramsey murders. And if it hadn't been for the cordless phone, John Benet would be alive today. Says
Thanks, Wade.
experts in British Columbia.
Listen, I'm sorry. There's millions of children dying all over the world. I'm sorry for that poor child, but it's like not something I want to talk about.
I want to put in a plug for Kevin Marsden, Marsden. Looks like the planet Mars, and it looks like DEN. Kevin Marsden, I think you should subscribe to his channel. I think everybody should go over there and look him up. You can type in Agent Serco, SERCO, Agent Serco. And what's happening, it's a really great experiment. I'll get off my commercial in just about 10 seconds. Is we're calling somebody out on their fake credentials. We're calling out people that we think are frauds that have been on the internet for 10 years, spewing all kinds of crap.
Thanks, Mr. Loggy.
Start proving what you say. Start proving your credentials. And they're like, well, I didn't go to Manford. I went to Cambridge. Well, the Cambridge has never heard of you. I went to Oxford. Oxford's never heard of you. I drink coffee and cookies. So that's our social experiment. Google or type in Agent Serco. It'll take you to Kevin Marsden. I'm done with the commercial.
Okay, let me ask you. Somebody's asking, and they super chatted. And just to let you know, anybody that super chats tonight, not only will your answer get, answered, your question get answered, but I'm gonna split it up with the guys because.
You and Dave split it. I don't want any super chat. You guys.
Whatever. Okay.
Linda, we know you're just getting back on your feet. I mean, you're a disaster victim. George, Linda was in a national disaster. Linda's a refugee from a national FEMA Type 1 incident. Linda, you're just getting back on the feet.
As I'm sitting here in my fake Gucci, come on now. I was in the Harvey disaster though, George. I had to get rescued.
You're a pilot because you can helicopter out of Houston when you get flooded out.
Yeah.
Flooded out.
Well, we had to get a boat. A boat ended up in our driveway. The Cajun Navy saved us. All of a sudden, we got a door.
And what was the one thing that Linda said, the first words out of her mouth when she turned her camera on? I wish I had a ham radio.
Yeah, I wish I had a ham radio and a small gold mug. No, so this guy wants to know what your IQs are, George.
About 68. 67.
So that makes you a 200. Okay, and what are you, Dave?
All right, so what I'll do is I'll just say I'll go by ASVAB score. I just got 2 degrees. I got one college sent me a degree.
No, they didn't ask you about your degree. They asked you about your IQ.
I'm just laying the groundwork.
Okay, you're just laying it on thick. Go ahead.
Sorry. So let's look at the ASVAB score. So if you're going to join the military, ASVAB score is a basic score. Like, will you take a battery and plug it into a cigarette lighter and kill yourself? It's one of those tests. I scored the highest ever. And then all through military, this is my IQ test.
So would you put a cigarette in there and kill yourself?
No, everybody will relate to the ASVAB test. So that's how they pick.
Yeah, I know. I relate to the ASVAB test.
So I could have went into the nuclear Navy. I could have been working nuclear Navy. But I didn't like the Navy uniforms. It was always cold. When I went into the Navy recruiter's office, I was like, it's really cold in here, and this is probably what the submarine's going to be like. It's probably going to be really cold. I want to go and talk to the Air Force guys. Anyway, so I got through tech school, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. on all the radio stuff. And at the end of tech school, they said, "Kid, we want to keep you as an instructor." And I said, "Yeah, that's great. I got 1 stripe on my arm. I'm going to be around all you guys with 7 stripes. Who's going to be mopping the floor? You don't want me as an instructor. You want me cleaning the place up." So I was smart enough to get out of there. So I guess that's my IQ test.
Okay, there's the answer to that one. Before I check the chicken one more time, let me take one more question from the chat here. Okay, what does George
To
think
answer
about
your question, Linda,
Oh.
Dave's about 20, I'd say about 20 to 25 IQ points smarter than me. And you could argue 15, 18. You know, there's room to argue, but he's definitely smarter.
Hey, over 160, isn't it like potato, potato? I mean, here, I've got a funny story. I have a friend that I was in a time in my life when I was living on the floor of somebody's house for a second, which happened. My ex-husband was a rock star, lost all his money. I was pregnant, yada, yada. It's my new book. Anyway, so I'm on my friend's floor, and her brother, one day I got a magazine delivered to the house, and it was Mensa Club. And I'm like, "Kurt, oh my God, you're in the Mensa Club? I mean, I'm so impressed. I had no idea." He goes, "Yeah, did you see the other magazine I got?" I'm like, "What's that?" He's like, "If you're so smart, why aren't you rich?" magazine. So, you
Well,
know,
college professors are routinely, they're basically just making enough money to get by, right?
rich dad, poor dad stuff. Let's just go there. I mean, working for the man, forget it. I mean, I don't know if college is even. I personally don't think I would. I didn't tell my kid to go to college. Now he's a musician, so like the last thing I got my degree in arts, and I'll tell you what that gets you. So good at waiting tables, you can buy a restaurant. It's like, so what do you think about college, George? You think college is worth it these days? I mean, your son's going to be a doctor, so I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's certain things. I'm getting a call from LA right now. I think it's Peter Duke, the world famous photographer. I'm going to just
Skip
take
it,
the call
George.
right now.
Skip
Talk
it.
to
This
Dave
is
for a second.
family. Say it's family.
All right,
Peter
all right.
Duke.
Sorry, Peter Duke. Can I get a discount on some new photos?
Let's all relax about Peter Duke. He'll call you back, George.
Okay, I know.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. So
I feel like I'm out to dinner with somebody and they just picked up and started
While
Instagramming.
George is talking to Peter Duke, Peter Duke's probably watching and calling George and going, "Hey, what's
Who
going
is
on?"
Peter
Anyway,
Duke?
Thank you.
He's a photographer.
I'm
He's
actually
the only
broadcasting right now, so
the only thing you need to know about Peter Duke is he photographed Faith Goldie.
Yep,
So Faith
yep,
Goldie is Canada's.
Okay, they want to know about the Frank. Oh my
Hold
God.
on. Faith Goldie, just so everybody got the players. Faith Goldie is Canada's Laura Loomer, and David Squawkins is Canada's Jerome Corsi. So you have 2 counterfeit universe, or not counterfeit universe, alternate universe. You have Faith Goldie, and Peter Duke shot a spread with Faith Goldie because he's like tracking all the new and upcoming social media street stars. That's who Peter Duke
Oh, darn. I was going to ask for a discount and see if I could get in there. And like, since you know, George, it's like, I wouldn't mind getting some of these boomer
Peter
rolls.
Duke just shot a big Mangiante, spread, and now Washington Post is following up. Washington Post Fashion Magazine is following up, and Peter Duke is this, he doesn't need credentials. He filmed. Sharon Stone bought 5 leather pencil dresses in 5 different colors, and Peter Duke shot all 5 shots. He kept saying there's a little too much hoo-hoo in the shot, and her comment
Faith Goldie, George.
I
You
want the job.
Get on track. Faith Goldie.
I want the
Anyway,
acting
so
job.
moving on.
So,
I got to check the chicken.
he does not need credentials as far as working with Hollywood.
So he filmed.
Most beautiful, but he has made this transition over to just kind of like trying to be this truth warrior and trying to go out and document people who are really trying to tell the truth. I think you should do a shoot with Peter. I think Dave should do a shoot with
Linda,
Peter.
you're getting sick.
And these are just like what they
Linda,
do is
don't
they
let your
shoot
hair- don't let your hair
themselves,
get in the toilet,
the
Linda.
Ocasio's, they
Linda,
shoot themselves
take
in
your hair out of the
beautiful
toilet.
light and beautiful makeup and dress and whatnot. And then they have these troll type pictures for the other side. And and what Peter says is, hey, let's just even out the playing field, and we'll give you the same kind of glamour shot that they have, and then we'll let the ideas battle it out rather than the optics
So can
battle
you
it
hear me,
out.
George? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
You can. You can hear me? Okay, so Linda left us on autopilot. You're the right engine. I'm the left
Hold
engine.
on, I've
Okay.
got some chicken action happening. What's
Hold
going
on,
on?
Linda. I got this. Left engine, right engine.
What
So
happened?
what did the FBI ask you in Zanesville when they interrogated you?
God, I can't leave you guys alone for a second. Jeez.
Did you check the chicken?
The chicken.
What did the FBI ask you? What did the FBI ask you in Zanesville? Hey, everybody wants to know that. Come on.
Yeah. So
What do you think you're talking to?
I'm going to tell you. There was two agents. One was this guy Pettijohn from Columbus, who was later we found out he has a business interest in nuclear fuel rods for BWXT in Lynchburg, Virginia. And so he might not want me going to the last place that Robert Mueller shut down as a centrifuge plant. And then there's this gal from a new agent, young lady from Cincinnati, and they kind of intercept me there. And I said, look, here's the deal. Pakistani Ordnance Factory, depleted uranium ammunition, Port of Charleston. They're bringing it in. They're doing something with it. It's either staying in the Freeport or it's going to different locations in the United States. But what's not happening is they're supposed to be bringing from Russia in these UF6 containers is not getting to the plant here in Pipeline. And, you know, Imran Awan and UAE, and here's the passports of these people.
So what were they
using
doing?
these
What were they
diplomatic
doing when you were
passports.
what were they doing when you were telling them all this?
And they did not want to know anything about that. They wanted to know, who do you hate? Who are you trying to get? Who do you have it in for? And I'm like, nobody really. I'm trying to expose this illegal uranium trade, and you know, I think you guys, you know, FBI and you know the NNSA, the nuclear
So let me ask you something.
NSA.
I want to ask you something.
You would want to know all this stuff. You would want to know that there was this illegal trade, right?
1 second.
And they didn't want to know anything about that. They wanted to know why I was a terrorist. They wanted to know why I was a domestic terrorist, and I wasn't.
So here's a question. Did they ask you questions about the Port of Charleston at all? This is important.
Yes.
Were they even interested?
Yes. That was all they asked
Okay.
about. All the questions were, what are you trying to prove? Who do you hate? You know,
Thanks, Sugar Shy.
you know, who are you trying to bring down? Who are you attacking? And I'm like, I'm not attacking anybody. I'm not attacking
Sounds
anybody.
like a setup. We call that a standard setup interview. You're off the hook, George. Obviously, this was pre-planned, pre-arranged, pre-staged. You just walked into it like a hapless victim. We understand. No problem. Got it.
That's exactly what happened.
There you go. Don't say anything else. That's it. Okay, great. Linda, next question.
You want to know about the chicken? Well, the chicken looks great, and I'm so glad George is innocent. We always knew George didn't do anything do-gooders.
The only worst thing, practical joke, whatever, I don't know what you want to call it. George did get that JTTF visit, right? So, George, how did that go? Did that give you like a little thrill?
What's a JTF? Like, for the rest of us that don't speak, like, I don't know.
Come on, George, tell everybody.
Well, it's the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and we had a guy who was a very close friend of Andy McCabe come over from the FBI Washington field office, and then we had two guys from JTTF Maryland division come over, and when I was getting my orange juice here at the hotel, they didn't draw weapons on me, but it was close, and they asked me, who are you here to take down? Who are you here to get? And I'm like, I'm not here to get anybody. All I'm here to do is tell a story and do reporting about this illegal uranium trade, and that was it. And I want Eddie McCabe, and this is what I said, I want Eddie McCabe to retire and raise horses and have his grandchildren on these horses. And I want to see the horses running around and having a good time. And I have no animosity toward anyone. And they were the most disappointed people in the world. They wanted to fill me full of holes. They wanted to fill me full of holes in that corner. And I just said, no, I want to see Andy McCabe out there watching his kids on the horses, the grandkids jumping and frolicking and having a good time.
All right, you're putting it on kind of thick. From now on, just do. Let's go with who do you hate?
I like horses. All right, who else has a question for the?
Who do you hate? I love that. I'm going to use it from now on, George. Hey, listen, you took my parking spot. Hey, who do you hate?
They wanted to know immediately who I
Oh,
hated.
where's the Jericho
Who do you hate? Who are you
Deeds?
trying to get? It's like
Why is your documentary couple interviewing
Jericho
George?
Deeds, by the way.